Good morning, YouTube. It's another wonderful day here in fantasy football world, and we're talking about Week 17 tough matchups today, tough calls. Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf. Michael Carter, he's facing the Bucs, but he's going to make a very interesting case for Michael Carter in full PPR leagues, and we'll do some fill in the blank as well. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. Here we go. Welcome to the show on this Wednesday, December 29th. Dave, remember I used to give the date every day all the time?
You did. You were like a vocal calendar.
Yeah. I'm going to bring that back for the last couple of weeks of the season.
Aren't these shows supposed to be sort of timeless? I mean, not timeless in terms of the fantasy season, but like
a different word besides timeless.
No,
they're not timeless.
They're supposed to be informative, entertaining, fun, but not necessarily you don't have to tell people I guess maybe the date of when we're recording. The time, does that matter? Maybe. What the hell am I saying?
This time of year, absolutely. Like 4 hours from now, we might have 65 players coming off the COVID list.
Man, I hope you're right. That sounds good.
If you're looking for the best way to track who's on the COVID list, go to CBSSports.com.
Open an NFL roster and look at it, and there you go.
Go to somehow, I think Washington has one player right now. Go to CBSSports.com and either go to CBSSports.com/NFL or click on the NFL Arena. And every week lately, we've had an article basically pinned in the headlines with a COVID tracker. And it's got every player on every team that's on the COVID list, including the date that player went on the COVID list. And it's very helpful. A lot of stuff kind of sneaks by. Like basically the entire Colts defense is on the COVID list. So we'll get into that and also tell you. Oh, see, there it is, the COVID-19 tracker, and we'll also tell you. What was I going to say? I don't know.
I think you were going to apologize for laughing at me last night's stream.
I was in a really bad mood last night, Heath. I apologize to you.
You were not in it, but the funny thing is, like you didn't come off as if you were in a bad mood.
Oh, I'm very talented, I guess.
You came off just kind of mean-spirited and ha-ha. And like on that note,
how did that start?
What happened?
I gave an opinion on players.
Oh wow, that's different.
Yeah, I guess I disagreed with it, which is not different.
like a dozen of them. Most notably, I think the Cowboys defense, who may be one of the toughest calls this week.
He doesn't have them in his top 24, and I just thought that was a little shocking.
I moved him up to 15. But again, and this is probably my fault, but I don't know. How are people making decisions based on whether a defense is ranked 15th or 30th?
I don't know. I just thought that was.
I can't think of any reason they would.
I think someone will look at your rankings and say, all right, what does he think about my DST? And if they see a DST that isn't in the top 12 and they see one that's on the waiver wire that is, I think that they would consider making that swap.
I don't put the reason I said that was I don't put a whole lot of effort into who is ranked between 16th and 30th at DST.
Aren't they the number one DST this year, though?
They are, but a really smart analyst told me earlier this year, I pretty much just pay attention to the matchups, which is why I think people have started the Dallas Cowboys over the last month against the Washington football team twice and Mike Glennon and Taysom Hill. But they might be a little bit scared of them against Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals.
Well, they haven't. Yeah, I get that. It was a little shocking to see them not in the top 24, but that's fine. All right. Anyway, what's the toughest call if it's not the Cowboys DST? What is the toughest call? Heath, I'll let you start. Give me one tough call for Week 17.
I mean, I do think that the Cowboys DST is a tough call for somebody who's gotten 60 points out of them over the last 3 weeks. And now they have Kyler Murray, and you have to decide, are you like I talked last night about the Football Guys Players Championship. The top 5 teams in that contest, tens of thousands of teams, all have the Cowboys defense because they've been so good over the last 3 weeks. And now they're facing Kyler Murray.
But is it really that intimidating to be facing Kyler Murray the last 3 weeks, without DeAndre, 2 weeks without DeAndre Hopkins?
Well, I believe the Arizona Cardinals opposing defenses, DSTs, are averaging 4.5 fantasy points per game against them, maybe 5.5. I just saw this number.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a terrible matchup for DSTs.
Is that Okay, I just want to look at the post Hopkins, if that's the same. Yeah. What was that? The Rams. How many games has Hopkins missed? 2 or 3?
I believe
Well,
it's
he's missed
only
like 6. But
well, yeah, right.
Oh, sorry, Kyler and Hopkins.
In the last 3
with
weeks,
Kyler-
they've allowed 10, 10, and less than 8 fantasy points to an opposing DST.
Okay. All right. That it is actually pretty interesting because we should be talking about this. I mean, this is not just a throwaway topic here. You would drop the Cowboys for who? The Bears?
I would. But the Bears, I don't think, are even in Dave and Jamie's top 5 DSTs. Nope. So, like, the Eagles, if they were available.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Saints are awesome.
I would drop them for the 49ers.
I've got them ahead of the 49ers right now, but I could make that case too. Right. I would still rather look. I love the talent that they have. I don't like the way that Kyler has been playing, and I wonder just how many points the Cardinals are going to end up putting up.
The other thing is the Cowboys are not a good DST because they hold teams to a low amount of yards or a low amount of points.
It's the touchdowns.
They've scored a bunch of defensive touchdowns, and that's not like every year we look back and say this defense was number 1 or 2 or 3 because they scored 7 touchdowns. They're not going to repeat that.
But they get a lot of turnovers, and that's
also
and
a little bit of luck
too.
Right. That's always the first basic point that you look for with a DST is how good is their pass rush? How many sacks can they get? How much pressure can they put on an opposing quarterback?
All right, let's get to our next tough call. Dave, give me a tough call for Week 17.
A tough call for Week 17. How about someone who hasn't been a tough call for a real long time? DK Metcalf. Going up against the Detroit Lions. He had a touchdown last week, but he still failed to get you 15 PPR points. Is it super easy to just walk away from him, knowing that the Lions have been okay against the pass lately?
I don't think it's super easy at all. The only thing you said that I would disagree with is that he hasn't been a tough call for a long time because it feels like he's been a tough call for me for 2 months.
Well, I was being sarcastic.
Oh, I missed the sarcasm.
Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry. I should have given you the.
It's not easy to sit him at all, but
I concur.
There's a lot of wide receivers I would sit him for, including Mon-Fri, St. Brown, and Hunter Renfrow. And
sure, put Isaiah McKenzie on that list if Cole Beasley's out.
Oh man, really?
Oh, that's an easy one.
Not if it wouldn't be easy for me if Gabriel Davis was back. If both Davis,
I'm
and
in on
Beasley
McKenzie even if Davis plays. McKenzie is the slot guy replacing Beasley.
But Beasley is like every other game as the slot guy.
Right. It's not like Beasley has been so good and reliable.
No, but McKenzie has still managed to get a lot of targets and get himself open with Josh Allen. No, it one game last year too without Cole Beasley.
Okay.
Oh, a target share over 20%. I think it's even over 24%. He had 2 touchdowns in the game. You'll say it's a throwaway game because it's from Week 17 of last year. Allen played. He was the one throwing.
I don't know.
McKenzie was awesome.
Do you know the splits in the first half and the second half? Because
I could look it up if you really wanted to, but I see 6 for 65 and 2 touchdowns on 9 targets, and I start salivating.
No, I think that is really something to look up because Diggs only played a half of that game. So that was Week 17 of last season, back when Week 17 didn't matter for fantasy. But Josh Allen threw 47. This is now becoming an Isaiah McKenzie discussion. Threw 47 passes last week against the Patriots. And that's basically what I've been saying all year long about Cole Beasley, right? Whenever Josh Allen throws a lot, Cole Beasley has 8 or more catches every single time. And by a lot, it's usually about 40 or more passes.
Sure. I've got it. I have the first half stats.
Okay.
In the first half, McKenzie had 4 catches for 47 yards and 2 touchdowns on 5 targets from Josh Allen.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
That's pretty good. All right. So that's a good case. Metcalf against the Lions, who give up. So listen, they give up a ton of yards per attempt, 3rd most in the NFL. I think the 5th most yards per catch to wide receivers, but they just don't give up a lot of attempts. They don't see a lot of passes.
And neither does DK Metcalf.
And neither does DK Metcalf. He hasn't had more than 8 targets in 6 or 7 straight games. And for the season, there have been, I want to say 6 wide receivers who have had a good game. Yeah. 6 wide receivers who have scored 13.7 or more. I usually go to 14, but 13.7 or more PPR fantasy points against Detroit with 8 or fewer targets. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Darnell Mooney twice, Van Jefferson, KJ Osborne. So it hasn't happened that often where you 8 or fewer targets and you get a good game against Detroit. Anything you want to follow up on there? Are we good with Metcalf?
I don't think you can look at Metcalf and say he's a candidate for 100 yards. Hasn't done that in a while. So that means he's got to score a touchdown or get a ton of targets and a lot of catches to come through for a big fantasy game. The only time he's had a ton of targets is when Tyler Lockett was out. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yep, that's what I meant. No more than 8 targets in any of the last 6 games with
and 8.
Lockett.
If he was getting 8 consistently, I would say that's a ton of targets. But I know he doesn't get that consistently. So he's got to score. And if he scores and gets you 60 yards and 4 catches, that's 16 PPR. So clearly not even close to a number 1 receiver. That's the easy part. And he's not even a high-end number 2 receiver. He's at best a low-end number 2 receiver. There's a lot of receivers that are like that, though. So I feel like he's the best of that class of wide receiver. And his floor is just as low as pretty much all these other receivers that we could discuss. Guys like Tyler Boyd and Devontae Parker and McLaurin, for crying out loud, Terry McLaurin. Yeah, you want to talk about another tough call. I mean, I almost feel like it's easier to start DK over McLaurin, to be honest.
I don't
you
think
just said Metcalf.
Yeah.
McLaurin.
You said McLaurin, right?
Sit McLaurin. Well, I mean, I'm probably sitting Metcalf too, but I'm sitting McLaurin if I have those 2.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
All right. If you want an edge with your DFS lineups, please check out the Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast, bringing you all of the insights you need to dominate DFS. Frank Stanfield, Mike McClure, Sia Najad provide cash and GPP analysis on Tuesdays and Thursdays, deep diving into pricing and matchups. Listen to the Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you listen on Spotify, leave us a rating. You can do that now. A 5-star rating on Spotify would be awesome. We'd appreciate it if you enjoy the show. Please show your love. Okay. Oh, you know what? Before we get into all the COVID stuff, Dave, would you like to share your John Madden story?
Okay. It's not like an exciting story, but maybe it's a glimpse of what everybody else has been saying about John Madden, where he's just like down to earth, cool type of man. I was covering a Monday night game. It was the Ricky Williams rain game against the Bears on Monday Night Football in Miami. Got to the game early, and I was on my way to the field to pregame just to, watch football players warm up, I guess. And coming the other way on a golf cart was John Madden. And I just kind of gave him a head nod. I'd never met him before, never talked to him. And he just smiled and waved back at me, like, happy-go-lucky, easygoing guy. And he went up to call the game, and I watched players warm up and then asked Ricky Williams about playing Madden after the game. That's kind of what my beat was back then for the NFL. So just it wasn't pretentious in the least. I think everybody kind of has that sense about John Madden just from like watching him broadcast and talk about football for however long he's been doing it. And greatly missed, definitely an icon in the National Football League. And I think, look, Vince Lombardi was an amazing coach and obviously the coach of the team that won the first Super Bowl. I would love it if the NFL renamed the trophy the Madden Trophy. The guy is football.
He's football, right? Yeah. Is there one person who embodied football more than John Madden? One person who represented football more than Madden? I don't think so. He's football. Yeah. I
could name other people who embodied football, but just not to the level of John Madden.
Yeah. Boom. And we had a question on the live stream last night. What was the best Madden video game? Which year? I'm not an expert on that, but
I wore out Madden 2001. Like, I know all the songs from it. I knew the cheat plays on it.
There were cheat plays?
Oh man, I was a master of that game. And then I had kids.
Yes.
I haven't played Madden in a long, and now my kids, like my son Ryan, will crush me in Madden now, because I haven't played, and I'm not very coordinated to begin with.
I can't wait to play video games with my kids when they get older. But all right, for all of you in the chat, go ahead, tell us who your favorite Madden video game. I'm sure you guys are more into that than I am. Best Madden edition, I guess. I can't remember which. I played the ones in the late 90s. And I guess a little bit in college too. But yeah, just awesome stuff. He was really funny in Little Giants, and he will certainly be missed. All right, let's get to the COVID stuff. So Mike Evans, along with 2 cornerbacks, Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting, are on the COVID list. They're going to be at the Jets this week, so that's the good news, I guess.
Is Elijah Moore back this week?
Eligible, but
Mhm.
also on the COVID list.
Mhm.
And Jamie and I talked about him on the waiver wire show because he's only 60% rostered.
Yeah.
The quotes from Robert Saleh didn't feel so optimistic about him playing. So we'll keep an eye on Elijah Moore, but not the worst player to pick up. And by the way, there are new protocols. You probably are aware of it. It's now easier for players to get back. So nobody who went on the COVID list yesterday has officially been ruled out. Even unvaccinated players like Carson Wentz, who's on the COVID list. They get the Raiders this week. A lot of key players on the Colts defense are on the COVID list. Julio Jones and Nick Westbrook are on the COVID list. Arizona linebacker Marcus Golden at Dallas. He has 11 sacks. He's on the COVID list. You already know about Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis. This is, by the way, a very incomplete list. 2 key Carolina defensive players at New Orleans, Brian Burns and Shaq Thompson. That would be good news if Thompson's out for Alvin Kamara. Cincinnati defensive tackle DJ Reader, Cleveland center J.C. Treader, Denver nose tackle Mike Purcell, Detroit wide receiver Josh Reynolds, Green Bay cornerback Kevin King, David Johnson's on the COVID list. So how about this for Dare Ogunbowale, or whoever's going to be the lead running back there, likely Ogunbowale. 2 starting offensive linemen, Andrew Norwell and Brandon Linder, on the COVID list for the Jaguars. But for New England, they have 3 linebackers. One of them at least more like a pass rusher, but Josh Uche, I believe, Matt Judon and Jawan Bentley, all on the COVID list. 2 Chargers cornerbacks, Michael Davis and Chris Harris, are on the COVID list. Philadelphia defensive end Derek Barnett and Tennessee linebacker Bud Dupree. Those are some big names that are flying under the radar.
I would, and again, for the most part, over the past year, I guess, if we were at Wednesday morning and players were on the COVID list, like, we're really anticipating they're not going to play this week. We're hoping maybe they'll somehow test out. I pretty much view it as if like 80% of the players currently on the COVID list will not be on the COVID list Sunday.
Right. It's almost like a waste to go through it. It's like trying to forecast the weather right now. My feelings about weather in football games. Tell me what the weather's like an hour before the game, and I'll tell you whether or not it's going to impact the game. I almost feel like we should just wait till Friday,
which isn't very helpful.
Absolute early. I know, but weather changes all the time. There's nothing that we can do about it. So if I'm telling you that there's going to be a snowstorm in Buffalo this week, and then we get to Sunday and it's a clear day in Orchard Park, we're just, we're wasting people's time. You almost feel like you have to wait until Friday or Saturday to get a real good idea of which players are going to be in and out.
But at the same time, like, that impacts everything.
Of course.
Like I said last night, Vegas lines are going to move. My
like
projections.
It already has. Did you see what happened with the Colts line?
Yes. Went from 7 to 1 to 5.
Yeah. Crazy.
I really Ask FFT Sunday morning is going to be really important. Mm-hmm. And I've got a lot of questions about where players are in the rankings already. There's no Thursday game this week.
Thank goodness.
We don't have to make any decisions until Sunday morning. And I'm like, our rankings are going to look a lot different, more than normal Sunday morning than they do now.
So let's get into some more tough calls for week 17. Let's start with, we did DK Metcalf and we did, Dallas DST. Russell Wilson. I guess we should get into Russell Wilson. Only one quarterback has scored more than 19 points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues against Detroit in their last 8 games. Now that's 19 non-decimal points, so maybe that's 20 to 21 in decimal scoring, something like that. But only one quarterback has really turned in a good game against Detroit in their last 8. That was Kirk Cousins. Meanwhile, Wilson has been between 20 and 24 fantasy points in each of his last 4 games with Tyler Lockett. So this was Dave's, I believe, right?
Russell Wilson? Sir.
All right, go ahead. Where are you ranking him as of right now?
Well, I've got him 12th among quarterbacks because I think he can hit that low floor of 20 to 22 fantasy points. We talk about that number all the time. I wouldn't expect him to get into the 30 range. But just to give some context, here are the quarterbacks that the Lions have shut down over those last 8 games. Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray. I'm not sure which quarterback it was for Denver. It was Bridgewater. Okay, cool. Bridgewater. For Chicago, it was Andy Dalton. For Cleveland, it was Baker Mayfield. Mason Rudolph threw 50 passes against them and only had 16 fantasy points. Jalen Hurts threw 14 passes against them and didn't have to do a whole ton. Matthew Stafford is the second guy. I guess that was 9 games ago because you said it was their last 8. So Stafford's last 9. So they haven't played a lot of amazing quarterbacks. Does Russ qualify as an amazing quarterback anymore? I'd say no. He's a step below that, whatever that means. He's still very good. And so I think he can find a way to get to that 20-point mark. I just wouldn't expect him to get to that 25-point mark. He's a tough call comparatively to like Joe Burrow, who we know, like it's so silly to say, how can you sit Joe Burrow after what he did last week? Well, he's playing the Chiefs. That's a good defense. It's going to be tough. I'd still rather go with Burrow over Wilson, but I understand why some people might view that as a tough call.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough call because he's bounced between 20 and 24 fantasy points, but he's needed 2 touchdown passes on 31 or fewer attempts to do that most weeks. And I just don't know what the ceiling is for Russell Wilson. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in a game since week 2. He hasn't thrown for more than 2 touchdown passes in a game since week 1. He doesn't run anymore. I don't really struggle with Wilson compared to anybody you might want to start. I struggle with Wilson compared to Trey Lance. And right now I would start Lance over Wilson.
Okay. Oh, Dave left. All right. Let's go to one of Heath's tough calls then. How about Cordaro Patterson? Is he a tough call or is he just a sit?
I think it's still a tough call in that he was so good for most of the season, and it's been 2 awful games, but even one of those he scored a touchdown in. He's a borderline number 2 running back. I think he's still in that same Michael Carter type range. I mean, it was just 3 weeks ago that he had 16 carries and 5 targets in a game. And really, it's just been the last 2 that he's been completely erased from the passing game. He had 5 targets against Tampa Bay as well. So there's still some hope that he could have double-digit carries and a handful of targets, and that generally is a starting profile.
Adam, what day is it? What time is it?
It is Wednesday, the 29th, 9 a.m.
I guess we had an appointment scheduled at 9 a.m. for the pest control guy, and that's what the ruckus was over here. Normally I'm at the office doing this show, but I'm not right now, so sorry about that, everybody.
All right, we're talking about Cordaro Patterson. Heath calling him a tough call. He is facing Buffalo, and you think, oh, Buffalo, that's a tough matchup. They've been pretty terrible against the run in their last 4 games. Fournette carved them up. Damian Harris had the long. I guess I wouldn't say they were terrible in that weather game against Patriots. It was basically one long run. They were good otherwise. They were terrible last week, though, against Damian Harris. And even Chuba Hubbard had, I think, 8 carries for 40 yards, whatever that's worth. And Star Lotulelei has missed, if not, I think 3 of those 4 games. And he's their best defensive tackle. He's their best run stuffer. I'm not sure that he's going to be playing this week. But, gosh, it's Heath, I don't want to start Cordaro Patterson. I imagine you don't either.
I don't think really any of the tough calls should be guys you want to start. I don't want to start Russell Wilson. I think that's kind of the point of a tough call. But the question is, how much does the last 2 weeks usage inform what the Falcons are going to do this week? Because like I said, if he's getting 15 carries and 5 targets, which he did basically the 2 weeks before the last 2 weeks, then he's really hard to sit. If he's getting 8 carries and 2 targets like he did last week, then it's really easy.
He doesn't look good. It looks like, I think you said this, Heath, he looks like a 30-year-old receiver turned running back hitting a wall, in a year where he's getting a career high in touches. He doesn't have that same type of explosiveness to the edge. Certainly on a consistent basis, he can't do it. And the offensive line is brutal. Like he's running he's not only does he not have great vision where he's missing clear lanes where he's supposed to go, but like even when he does hit the hole the right way, he's being met by a defender pretty quickly and not getting many yards. He's a big dude, but he's not plowing through defenders. Really, he's a touchdown or bust fantasy running back at this point. And I think the Falcons know it. I think they know that their offensive line isn't very good. And I think they know that they can't lean too heavily on Cordaro Patterson. And the last 2 weeks have been proof of that. How about this? The last 3 weeks, he's scored 24 PPR fantasy points. Half of them have come on touchdowns. So if he doesn't score, he's averaging 4 fantasy points in PPR per game. That's what I think his ugliest floor is against Buffalo. And I agree, the Bills' run defense has been atrocious. And you'd think the Falcons would try and capitalize on that. I just don't know how successful they'll be. So Patterson is a flex for me this week. I do not wish to start him.
Well, let's talk about Russell Gage in this game. Because I actually think this one's pretty interesting. We can make cases for and against. Dave, you had him as a tough call, but I think you're leaning sit on Russell Gage.
I am leaning sit on him. And he's still, I'm not going to do that. He'd probably push me. The Falcons just didn't throw a lot last week. They didn't win the time of possession battle at all. I think the same thing could happen this week against Buffalo, where they might have to throw to play from behind. I think that's pretty easy to say, but not if Buffalo is crushing time of possession like they normally do. And that means that leaves the Falcons with 20 to 25 minutes of game clock for them to do what they can. Kyle Pitts has started to step up and play better over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We've talked about him starting to look a little bit better. And I'm worried about Russell Gage not getting enough targets, even in a pass-friendly game script, to be useful in PPR leagues. And it's the Bills. They've been awesome against wide receivers. 5 receivers have scored against them all year long. I think 4 all year have had 15-plus PPR fantasy points. I do not want to. This will sound ridiculous, but I will start DK Metcalf ahead of Russell Gage.
Heath?
Yeah, I would start Gage. And again, this is kind of one of those situations where it's basically one bad game for Gage. The week before, he had 8 for 91 and a touchdown on 12 targets in a game that they lost 31-13 against the 49ers, who always dominate. I don't know what the time of possession was in that game, but I assume they got dominated in time of possession in that game.
No, it was very even. It was 29. It was basically 30-30.
Look, the reason why he had the same type of target share that he normally gets last week, Matt Ryan only threw 24 passes.
Right. So
I mean, if you think they're going to run 45 plays or whatever again, and they might, but I don't think that's it's hard to project that.
Well, so let me break down the last 6 games for Gage, right? That's when he started really entering the starting discussion here. He had two huge games. 11 catches, 130 yards on 12 targets against the Bucs, 8 for 91 and a touchdown on 12 targets at San Francisco. What do those 2 games have in common? Blowout losses. They lost 30-17, and Ryan threw 41 passes. They lost 31-13. Ryan threw 32 passes. The other 4 games, he hasn't been more than 64 yards. He did score in one of them, but he's had 5 for 49, a 4 for 64, a 4 for 39, and a 6 for 62 in one. What do those games have in common? They're 3-1 in those games, and the one game they lost was to New England, which is a terrible matchup. They did lose 25-0, but it was, that's a tough matchup. Now, are the Bills a tough matchup? So basically what I'm saying is I can make the case that they're going to lose this game like they did against Tampa Bay, like they did against San Francisco. Ryan's going to have to throw more than he did last week, and then he throws, most weeks, and that's really good for Russell Gage. But are the Bills a tough matchup? I think that's the question. They have been all season long, but since they've lost Tre'Davious White, they've played the Patriots twice.
Once in a gale storm.
I think it was the Saints, and it was the Bucs was the other one. No, it wasn't the Saints. It was the Niners. Who the hell did they play? Yeah, it was the Saints. I'm sorry. And the Bucs had a huge game against them. And basically, the only time they played without Tre'Davious White,
it was the Panthers, right?
No, I'm talking about the who have the Bills played since losing Tre'Davious White. Oh, it was the Panthers?
Yep.
Okay. So they faced the
last
Patriots.
4 games have been Patriots, Bucs, Panthers, Patriots.
Okay, yeah. Right. So pretty easy matchups except for the Bucs, excuse me, who threw all over them. So yeah, that's my question, I guess, is if you can make the case for Ryan throwing the ball a lot, then you start talking about, well, does that matter against the Bills? They've been so good. They're number 1 against wide receivers, but are they really that good? I guess is the question.
I just think, like, talking about those games with Russell Gage, most of the bad games you mentioned were in that 10-point fantasy range. That's a good game for DK Metcalf over the last 2 months.
If you're telling me I'm getting 5 for 60 from Gage, I'll take my chances with Metcalf.
Exactly. And I'll find other players to consider ahead of both of them.
Yeah.
But again, we're saying we're acting like the projection for Russell Gage is his bad games.
I think it is, given the opponent.
He said, yeah. Those aren't just his bad games, though. He had 5 for 49. He had 4 for 39. It's not like 5 for 60 is his bad.
If you had DK Metcalf versus 5 for 60 over the last 2 months, you should have taken 5 for 60.
Okay.
Right?
No, I completely get it. I think we're making the case that both of them are sits, and that the one who's got, I guess you're saying, Heath, that the one who has more upside is Gage. And in PPR, I guess you can get a sense of that, and he has been, right.
I think he has 3 games over the last 6 weeks that are better than DK Metcalf's best game over the last 7.
Do you think it, or do you know it? Because it sounds like you know it.
Right.
Two of those are definitely true. I'm not sure if DK has a 16-point game or not.
No, I don't think so.
So three games over the last 6 weeks better than anything DK's done since Russell Wilson returned.
All right, let's talk about Michael Carter. I thought this was an interesting one, Heath, because immediately I say Michael Carter sharing carries with Tevin Coleman, facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who allow the fewest fantasy points to running backs. There is no way I'm starting Michael Carter, but you made a good case, I think, last night. So go ahead, make your case why Carter is a tough call.
And again, like I said, all of these guys are in situations where in the fantasy championship, you hope that you are not starting them. It wouldn't be a tough call if we wanted to start them. But I do think, like, first off, we've seen Michael Carter have a little bit of success against bad matchups when he's been used in the way that we want him to be used. The question is, will Zach Wilson throw to his running backs? The last 2 weeks with Michael Carter hasn't looked like it. He has 5 targets in 2 games. But in those 2 games, Zach Wilson's thrown 23 and 24 passes. He's not going to throw that number of passes in this game against Tampa Bay. The last time they had a matchup like this was actually, I believe, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he threw 46 passes against the Saints. He's averaging a lot more passes than he's been throwing lately. And in that game, Ty Johnson had 7 targets.
I think Ty Johnson had every running back target, though.
Right.
So
that was then.
How much goes to Coleman? How much goes to Carter?
Did Coleman have a target last week?
Yeah. He had 1 catch. I don't know how many targets he had.
I've got him projected for 5 targets because I think they're going to throw probably 40 passes. Coleman had 1 target last week.
Okay.
He had 0 the week before.
Ty Johnson.
Carter had 3.
So I don't know. Ty Johnson.
I think Ty Johnson played 1 snap.
Yeah.
I don't think, and again, things change every single week, but I think our expectation should be that the first game back for Michael Carter was the get your feet wet. Now he's pretty much back to his role. It's not quite as good of a role with the other quarterbacks because they were throwing 25% of their passes to running backs, and Zach Wilson's closer to 15%. But if they throw 40 passes, you should expect 4 or 5 of them to go to Michael Carter. He's had some success against bad matchups already, and you can have success catching the ball as a running back against Tampa Bay.
You know, the snap numbers will agree with you, Heath. Last week, 73% of the snaps for Michael Carter. He played 12 of 17 snaps on 3rd and 4th downs. Those are usually passing downs, and 9 of 14 from 10 yards or closer. Now, I'm mildly encouraged that they even ran 14 plays inside of 10 yards, but it was against Jacksonville. So I don't think they're going to have quite that many, probably not even half as many against Tampa Bay. But at least Carter was there because the week before he played about half the snaps. He was in, I think, on either 1 or 2 snaps inside the 10. Tevin Coleman was in on 5 of them. So the role definitely changed. It definitely looked like he was a better running back last week than he was 2 weeks ago. There's a chance for him in this game. There's going to be an opportunity for him to do well.
The way I look at it as basically the switch flipped week 7, and he had a 4-month stretch where he was the clear lead running back for the Jets, and he averaged 20 touches per game in those 4 games. He got hurt week 11 and had 10 touches and a third of the team snaps, left the game. Came back last week. It was his first game back. Last week, he was basically back to his role. 74% of the snaps, 18 touches. I think he's the lead running back. I don't
Is
think
he a
there's
top
as much
20?
sharing as it looks like.
Is he? I would tend to agree with you, especially based on last week. Would you say he's a top 20 running back this week?
No. If he's a top 20 running back, I wouldn't say he's a tough call.
I think that guys who are in the top 20 should be viewed as tough calls right now, just given that we're in the championship, right? And
then,
okay, would you start Boston Scott over Michael Carter?
Scott if no Howard, Carter if Howard's there.
It's probably the right way to play it.
How about Javonte Williams? Last guy, because when we go too far into this, we got other stuff to do. But Javonte Williams was another name you submitted, and he's at the Chargers. They were horrible last week against Burkhead. I will tell you, I honestly feel like they were a lot better before that. They had gotten better against the run, but still giving up points, giving up production. Yeah, so Javonte Williams, is he a tough call? I think Jamie likes Javonte Williams quite a bit based on what he said yesterday. I'll check the rankings. But is Javonte a tough call? He is for Heath. Dave, how about you?
I think he's a tough call. He doesn't register as a top 20 running back. I've got him 2 spots ahead of Michael Carter right now, even in full PPR. But a lot of that is just based on the opponent, and that I think I didn't watch the Broncos game, so I don't know exactly what happened that caused them to only give each of their running backs 7 carries.
What happened?
Please.
They started Drew Lock.
First of all, they had the ball for 21 minutes. They ran like 42 plays, something like that.
Well, what happened in the first half?
They went 1 of 10 on third down, and ESPN Stats and Info had something like all but 3 of their carries. They were met in the backfield by a defender. So they had no chance in that game. It was a terrible game up front by the quarterback, by everyone. So I hope we can flush it, but the quarterback situation there matters a lot to me, Dave. I don't know about for you.
I think it definitely matters. And my guess, this is just a guess, I could look and see right now how many 8 in the box plays that those running backs had last week. But my guess is that the Raiders just wanted to dare Drew Lock to throw. Because remember, the Raiders were one of the worst run defenses. It was a fabulous matchup for both of them. That's why I like both of the running backs last week. And then they ended up splitting 50-50 with whatever limited touches that they ended up having.
What I said last night, Dave, was I think we would just view Williams as a high-end flex, low-end number 2 running back like we did for the first 10 or 11 weeks of the season, if it had not been for the week that he had without Melvin Gordon. And Melvin Gordon's there. If we just look at the games with Melvin Gordon, that's what he is.
Except for the last few games.
Right. Like before last
not the
week.
last few games, because the last game he was awful.
No, right. But the game before he was playing, hold on. He was playing well, and I think he had an edge. I think it was almost like 60-40 on Melvin Gordon in terms of snaps.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know how it was 59% according to what I'm looking at right now. I don't know how much it matters, the difference between 49% of the snaps and 59% of the snaps if we're talking about 2 plays.
I think it's more than 2 plays, but it might not be more than 2 carries or 2 touches.
So here's the last 3 games he played with Melvin Gordon, right? Not factoring the Chiefs game. He had 14 to 15 carries in all 3 games. He had 3 catches, 1 catch, and 4 catches. So that's 17 touches, 16 touches, and 19 touches. I think that is why people wanted to start him.
I'm not saying it was wrong to start him last week.
Yeah.
No,
what about this?
Did not see this coming.
I think
setup,
it might not be wrong to start him this week either, but last week's floor is still in the equation, especially if the Chargers come out and look like the Chargers offense and put up a big number.
Yep.
I want to know if you guys are interested in these numbers. Javonte saw 8 in the box on 16% of his runs last week. Is this last week? I'm sorry. Come back to me in 15 seconds.
Okay. Well, why don't we take a quick commercial break? And when we come back, we'll wrap up our thoughts on Javonte Williams. We'll do some fill in the blank, talk dynasty tight ends, and read your emails and your Apple Podcast questions to finish off the show. We will be right back. And we're back. Dave, have you finished your research?
I did. 14% of his carries last week, Javonte's carries last week, were against 8 in the box. I'm double checking for Melvin's.
What is
Melvin's
that?
at
That's
0.
one time because
1 out of 7
carries. Yeah.
Is that 1 out of 7? So it's not it was not the Raiders stacking up and daring Drew Lock to throw, which makes it all the more frustrating that the Broncos could not get it going. Right.
Terrible game for them in every respect. All
They-
right, Jamie.
By the way, the leader in 8 in the box, by the way, last week was Alvin Kamara. Not surprising.
That does make sense. And Kamara is a tough call too, and he's coming up in our fill in the blank section. So here we go. Fill in the blank from our listeners. Thank you very much for participating here. From Bandman Dez, blank burned me this season, but I'm giving blank another chance next year.
Are we including players with injury?
Sure.
Hey.
No? Okay. Because McCaffrey comes to mind. But...
Yeah,
Sure,
Christian
Derrick Henry
McCaffrey. I'll
came to
give
my
him
mind.
another chance.
You will.
McCaffrey?
Yeah, I feel like I can't give him that chance as a top 5 pick. With all the injuries he's had over the last couple seasons, I don't think I want to entrust him.
You think
with
he's
an
more
early
of an
first.
injury risk than Dalvin Cook next year?
I think
No.
I almost think Cook has earned it. Over the last few seasons, he's missed time, but so has pretty much every running back.
Like
Missing
Christian,
a couple games here or there. Well, McCaffrey missed like all but 3 games 2 years ago, and half the games this year, more than half the games this year.
Who do we think has missed more games in their career, Dalvin Cook or Christian McCaffrey?
Over their career, it's probably going to be Cook because he missed like pretty much a full season.
Yeah.
Like his first 2 years in the league. But I'm looking at recently. Who's missed more games the last 2 years?
Let's answer the question here. Blank burned me this season, but I'm giving blank another chance next year.
Terry McLaurin comes to mind for me.
I'd say Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. Okay. From James. In 2022, the most likely team to be the equivalent to the Rams' greatest show on turf is blank. And then he puts in parentheses, the Bengals are the answer.
That's probably right. They're going to get better this offseason. They're going to bulk up that offensive line. They'll be good. I think the Chargers could give them a run, but they got to commit to they just got to commit to playing better and smarter.
The thing is, do the Bengals want to be the greatest show on turf, or do they want to run the ball 25 times a game and just throw it like that when on occasion?
When they need to.
The Cowboys really come to mind. I
thought they would be this year.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not exactly sure what happened. I get their defense was probably
This is a dark horse, but you know who it could be? Could be the Chiefs.
From Ghosts.
Hold up. Could the Broncos be that team if they make a major upgrade at quarterback?
Sure.
And where's Deshaun Watson playing next year?
Ghost Dogs FF. The number of running backs drafted in round 1 next year will be blank.
8.
7.
7 or 8.
Would you like to name them?
No.
Yes. Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
I'm
Is
sure
this your
Dalvin
order?
Cook.
Yeah.
Christian
Is this your
McCaffrey
order?
is going to be in the first round. What?
Is this your order?
No.
Okay.
Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry,
Alvin. Does Mixon make it?
Mixon?
I don't think Swift is. Mixon, I
Eckler.
would say yes.
Eckler is going to be
Eckler.
there. Thank you, Ben.
Yep. That's 7.
Anyone
Maybe
else?
Swift.
Najee?
Najee will be a second round pick, but if the Steelers if they make massive strides this offseason at quarterback and at offensive line especially, then maybe he can creep in there at the back end of round 1.
All right, 2 dark horses for you, or 3 dark horses. One is Tony Pollard. Just somehow Zeke is not on the team. 2 is not even as much of a dark. Javonte Williams.
Yeah, he's got a shot too.
And could be a rookie. Rookie ends up in the right spot.
Chubb could be too.
Chubb in non-PPR.
Chubb and non-PPR. Yep.
All right. Jesse says the second-year wide receivers were blank compared to the rookie wide receivers. Better?
I think better was the word he was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
No, but obviously the expectations were very different, and Yeah, this is a good one. Okay, the second-year wide receivers were blank compared to the rookie wide receivers. And if you put it in the context of preseason expectations, sure, they were better, but were they better based on preseason expectations?
Well, I would say Justin Jefferson met or exceeded his expectations. T. Higgins met or exceeded his expectations. CD Lamb met his expectations, assuming that the last 2 weeks don't go bad. I was thinking about that today, like all the energy we spent on Amari Cooper and CD Lamb, and I conceded that one like a month into the season, and we're 1 week where Amari Cooper does his blow up thing and CD Lamb doesn't have a good week from Cooper being better than Lamb.
What, per game?
Yeah.
Cooper's at 13.8, Lamb's at 15.6. Yeah, Lamb is limping to the finish line. Higgins is exploding, but Higgins wasn't so good for much of the season.
Yep. I think Michael Pittman exceeded expectations.
Ayuk did not. I guess they had a pretty good year, the year 2 guys.
Yeah.
They did. But you can name a bunch of rookie receivers that exceeded expectations. Chase and Waddle, chief among them. I'll tell you who disappointed from the second year. The first guy that came to my mind was Claypool.
Yeah. He stunk. Devontae Smith has been pretty much a bust.
Right. So, yeah, the second-year guys were better than the rookie guys.
I would guess that to be the case again next year and probably the year after that.
Well, based on but was this a year where we can say, hey, second-year guys, they're the true breakouts? Because I remember, I said it a lot in the preseason. I love year 2 wide receivers. I hated the setup for basically all of them. None of them really, except for Pittman, I guess, had and Jefferson was a different beast. But none of them had a clear path to leading the team in targets. Or they were just in these bad situations. You look at Dallas, you look at Cincinnati, you looked at Pittsburgh and San Francisco. These 4 promising rookie receivers who they did so much. I think they were sort of held back by their circumstances a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be the case next year. Especially with Waddle and Smith. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
did we get a return to the old school third-year breakout wide receiver?
Debo,
Hunter Renfrow. It's the best year of Deontay's career. Marquise Brown, best year of his career.
Is it the best year of Deontay's career?
Yeah, I'm not sure about.
He's never had a 1,000-yard season before. He's already over 1,014 games.
What about his touchdowns and catches?
I mean, he's got 7 and 92 catches. I think it's like he hadn't actually been good before.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can buy that.
And Brown started off amazing.
But even like if he doesn't catch another pass, it's almost the best year of his career.
But DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
AJ Brown.
Not every third-year wide receiver is going to break out. Jacoby Myers broke out and scored his first touchdown.
Hey, yeah. All right, next question. If Mike Evans is healthy, do I start him or Antonio Brown? That's not really a fill in the blank, so I'll rephrase it. If Mike Evans is healthy, I should start blank.
Tom Brady.
I'll lean toward Brown.
Yeah, me too.
From Joreen.
Those targets are just insane.
I will prioritize quarterbacks, she says, more in 2 QB leagues and pick sooner.
Yes.
Agreed?
Agreed.
What?
It's a 2 QB strategy. It's prioritizing quarterbacks earlier, picking sooner. And
there's no blank here.
I know. I will prioritize quarterbacks blank in 2 QB leagues.
This is more of a New Year's resolution than it is a fill in the blank. But the resolutions will come on a later time.
I don't know that my opinion on quarterback strategy in 2 QB leagues changed this year.
I don't know what your strategy is, so you have to lay that out.
It's I have no intentional positional strategy. It's a new thing that I came up with this year.
Yeah, you do though. It's a
and we'll see what the rest of the league does.
I can't imagine doing a 2 QB league where I don't have at least one great quarterback.
That's how I got to the finals doing that. I had Dak, and then I was basically streaming the other quarterback position.
I don't know how you pulled it off. I mean, there were some weeks where you were starting Trey Lance when he wasn't even playing.
Listen, I started Lance. I had Davis Mills.
That's not a good strategy.
Our super flex league that I am about I think I have a 50-point edge right now in the final week of the season that Dave and I are in. My 3 quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson, Carson Wentz, and Andy Dalton. And there were no waiver wire moves allowed. So those were just my 3 quarterbacks for the entire season.
I mean, it comes back to the most basic strategy, no matter what your format is. Get good players.
Yeah.
If you've got great quarterbacks, hopefully the rest of your team is good and you'll blow everybody out week after week. The rest of my team in that 2 QB league is definitely meh, but I had great running backs. Found a way to win with Dak Prescott anchoring the QBs.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm
not lucky to make it to the finals.
Gamble on quarterbacks who could lose their job or rookie quarter. I don't think there's enough upside, but there's plenty of upside, but there's too much downside, and the waiver wire stinks in a 2 QB league.
Yeah,
but
that's really something to avoid.
In one league where I didn't really like my quarterbacks, I drafted 4 of them, and I was able to trade Jameis Winston for Robert Woods, which ended up being a wash. But there's such valuable pieces that if you don't really like your team, you draft extra quarterbacks and you can trade them for something better than what was available on draft day. I could pretty much guarantee.
Makes sense.
That certainly works better in a 2 QB league than a regular 1 quarterback league.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
But there were also a lot of quarterbacks that emerged off the waiver wire and provided QB2 type value throughout the year.
And you had to spend 40% of your fab on that.
You did. You had to go a little hog wild on Case Keenum.
Yeah. All right, let's talk dynasty.
But it's almost like the 0 RB strategy, but with quarterbacks.
I would never do that, but it worked for Dave.
It might work if you're in a league that doesn't have fab.
Okay. All right, Heath, dynasty tight ends. Give me a riser and a faller.
Probably your best call of the 2021 season was Dawson Knox, and he is the biggest dynasty riser. He is now, I've got him as of the December update as tight end 8 in dynasty. He'll be 25 years old at the start of next season. Looks to be maybe, like, moving forward, the 2nd or 3rd best option in the Bills passing game.
Where is he related to Pat Freiermuth?
Oh, they're not related.
I have him a couple spots ahead of Pat Freiermuth, but I do not believe in Pat Freiermuth.
Really
interesting. You don't believe in him in being a contributor to fantasy leagues, or you don't believe in him being a breakout type of tight end?
I don't think he is going to ever be the type of guy that has like 100-yard games as a tight end.
Fair. How Knox does?
Yeah, he plays with Josh Allen, and maybe there's a really good quarterback, and Pat Freiermuth also develops the same relationship with Ben Roethlisberger that he had with Ben Roethlisberger. So he only because the only thing Pat Freiermuth has done this season is score touchdowns. He's got 422 receiving yards. He's CJ Uzomah.
Okay, I agree with Knox being ahead of Freiermuth, but I think that they're fairly close, and I know there's some excitement for Freiermuth in Pittsburgh to be a fixture and the Heath Miller type of staple.
I think that's
offense.
a role
but
that
you're
he
right,
can
the
fill.
quarterback. Right, sure. But I don't know if Dawson Knox is that much further ahead, even with Josh Allen as his quarterback.
Okay. How about look, if you looked at Rob Gronkowski's rookie season, you might have said the same thing, right? All he did was score touchdowns,
and then he just erupted his second year. Sure.
Henry had, it's a pretty impressive thing to just score a lot of touchdowns even as a rookie. So yeah, I am saying that Pat Freiermuth is the next Rob Gronkowski. Heath, who's your dynasty faller at tight end?
Wow. I did not expect a Pat Freiermuth Rob Gronkowski comparison on the podcast today. There were multiple, but I think probably the biggest for me were Austin Hooper, who really isn't that old yet. He's still he was 26 years old, to be 27 going into next year. And so I still had some hope that he could get back to what he had been earlier in his career. That hope is pretty much gone. And Logan Thomas, who is just old and got hurt again and probably isn't going to be around for the start of next year.
Sounds like 2 guys that you're not going to be able to get anything for in a dynasty trade. Like maybe not even a 3rd round pick in a rookie only draft.
And I'd probably throw Robert Tonyan into that as well.
Which is there.
Maybe a better comp for Pat Freiermuth than Rob Gronkowski.
Okay. Let's read some emails.
Can I ask? I think we should do one poll. Whose career will Pat Freiermuth most resemble?
And what are the
Rob
options?
Gronkowski, Robert Tonyan, or CJ Uzomah?
No, you have to have. I think you have to go.
You have someone in the middle.
Hunter Henry, CJ Uzomah, or something like that.
I like that. Yeah,
Uzomah and Tonyan are way too similar.
And I bet the answer will be Hunter Henry.
Yeah,
that'll be the one that gets the most votes, and that's the one that I would agree with.
Yeah, I mean, I'd vote Gronk, but no, it's Henry. Right?
I think we need to take the middle option out so that you had to pick a side. I want you to pick a side, Uzomah or Gronk.
Oh, Uzomah. never gonna expect Gronk production, basically.
And
okay, so what if the only options were Hunter Henry and Uzomah?
I'd probably choose Henry because Henry's a weird dude. He's had 3 or 4 really good 6 to 8 game stretches for fantasy purposes, but Hunter Henry at 28 years old now has never had a 700-yard season.
But he's always been a fantasy relevant tight end
because of the touchdowns. Yeah.
Uzomah hasn't.
He's someone who we've always drafted as a fantasy relevant tight end. Yes.
Uzomah is a poor man's Hunter Henry. Yeah. And I think Freiermuth will be better than that.
All right, let's go to the emails. This is from Nick. I've been rolling with Najee Harris, Alvin Kamara, and I have Ronald Jones in the flex. Do I sit any of them for Gibson, Cordaro Patterson, or Darrell Williams?
No. Give me the names one more time at the top, because Darrell Williams is the one that I'm thinking
Najee Harris, Alvin Kamara, and Ronald Jones.
No, I think you're good with those 3.
Yep. This is from Ian. Dear Lewis, Gilbert, Poindexter, and Booger.
Nerds!
This is from a city northwest of the Venice of America.
Northwest of the Venice of America? That could be Coral Springs. That could be, it could be Louisville, Kentucky. It could be Mankato, Minnesota.
I'm pretty sure it's Seattle.
Oh, Fort Lauderdale.
Definitely Northwest. Yeah, Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale is apparently the Venice of America.
Of course.
And Seattle is northwest of that.
For sure.
Did you know that Fort Lauderdale was the Venice of America?
Yes. You know, that's a really bad clue because 99% of the cities are northwest of Fort Lauderdale, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's why I said Coral Springs.
I didn't know that about Fort Lauderdale. That's bad on my part. All right, Ian's question.
Did you grow up here?
I sure did. I'm in a 2-week final that runs through week 18. But I didn't grow up in Fort Lauderdale. I grew up in a suburb of Fort Lauderdale.
You grew up in a suburb northwest of Fort Lauderdale called Coral Springs.
I've been rolling with Russell Wilson and a bunch of streamers. I'm looking to add a second quarterback in advance of week 18. Who do you like best for week 18? Wentz at Jacksonville, Carr against the Chargers, or Tannehill at Houston?
Wentz.
Same.
Feels like Wentz at Jacksonville feels like a 22 pass attempt game.
It feels like that for all Tannehill as well.
I'd probably go Carr, but I guess you guys are going Wentz.
Carr's been so bad.
Is there any chance that Wentz could not need to play next week?
No.
Like they've locked up a 4 through 6.
Because I think Tennessee clinches the division with a win this week.
And the Colts clinch a playoff spot with a win, right?
Right. So
why would they play?
I guess that's possible. I guess for now I would stick with Wentz.
From BT.
Hold on, wait. The Colts clinch a playoff spot with a win this week?
I was asking.
Oh, I thought you were saying.
I think
they could go from anywhere from 3 to 9 or something with a win or a loss this week. Something.
Hold on, I can look this up. Quickly.
I don't know if they can necessarily clinch a playoff spot solely with the win, but I definitely think there's a lot of scenarios where they can
absolutely do it with a win.
Right.
They're 9-6 right now. They're a game behind Tennessee. Tennessee holds the tiebreaker. Tennessee has to lose out then, and Indy has to win out in order for them to win the division and get a home game. But they can win this week. They would be 10-6. There would be no one else in the division that could catch them. They would be a wild card team. You're right, Heath. There is a chance that Wentz could sit out week 18.
We've got I think we have a possibility of a pretty normal week 18. especially compared to previous Week 18s.
I know if the Chiefs win and the Titans lose,
all those Week 18s we've had.
If the Chiefs win and the Titans lose, there's no race for the 1 seed. I think if there's no race for the 1 seed, then there's going to could be a lot of teams not playing the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
But you might want the home game. You know, they still try to get the
well, unless it's possible some of these teams could have their division clinched as well.
Right. Kansas City has already done that. They can clinch the 1 seed with a win. Tennessee can clinch their division with a win. I think Cincinnati clinches their division with a win and a Ravens loss.
Okay.
And then Buffalo and New England is the one where, they're tied going in.
So from BT, I have Kyler Murray.
We could do the NFC next if you want.
Who would you start? Kyler, Joe Burrow, or Tua?
Not Tua.
No, I think it's Kyler, but I don't love it.
I would go Kyler and 4 point per pass touchdown, Burrow and 6.
Okay, this next one is from Derek. Hopeful Super Bowl champ an hour southwest of Houston.
Hour southwest of Houston.
Like it's got to be Dallas.
No, are you kidding?
What?
Have you ever looked at a map?
He said hopeful.
Mexico's an hour and a half southwest of Houston, isn't it?
No.
He said hopeful Super Bowl champ. Arizona? I don't know.
There's a
well, I'm just thinking
west of Houston.
Maybe he means
I don't know.
Super Bowl champ in his league.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think so.
That threw me off. I guess I don't know Texas geography very well.
Neither do I. I haven't named a city. Galveston is due south and then west. Goodness, I don't know.
Padre?
No, that's
there is no city southwest by an hour and a half.
I mean, there's a city. It's just not one that's like
does not
literally
exist.
Not a city.
Okay, well that's his fault, not mine. PPR league,
but it's definitely not Dallas.
He needs 2. Well, he said Super Bowl champ. Okay, that threw me off.
Technically, I think it could be if it was west by southwest. I think it could be San Antonio.
All right, wonderful. So PPR league.
Are you sure that's not south by southwest?
Shut up. He needs 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex. AJ Brown, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle, CeeDee Lamb. Pick 2. Okay, if nobody's going to speak, I'll say AJ Brown and Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, that's probably the way I'd go too. But having Waddle out of there stings a little bit.
You can make
Lamb is the easy one to sit.
And Najee Harris, Sony Michel, and Zeke. Sit 1.
I'm sitting Zeke.
And then pick a flex. Waddle, Lamb, Zeke.
Oh, Waddle. Good. I can get Waddle in there.
There you go. Okay.
This is Cowboys.
From Matthew. Pick 2 running backs and a flex. Chubb, Damian Harris, Penny, Michelle, Gronk. Chubb, Damian Harris, Penny, Michelle. Pick 2.
Blessing, Texas is an hour and 33 minutes southwest of Houston. Blessing.
Okay.
You're stealing my gimmick, Heath. I think I would go with Chubb, Harris, and Michelle, provided that Ramondre Stevenson does not come back. If Stevenson comes back, put Penny in for Harris.
All right, great. From Jack, standard scoring, pick 2 running backs. Ronald Jones, Rashad Penny, Alexander Madison, Alvin Kamara. Ronald Jones, Penny, Madison, Kamara. Pick 2.
I would go with Madison and Jones if Cook is out. If Cook plays, I would go Jones and Kamara.
Okay. Heath, I guess you can just chill here. From Rosie, dear Elijah, Henry, Johnny, and Ezra.
Elijah, Henry, Johnny. Johnny spelled Johnnnie.
They're whiskey brands, according to Rosie. She made the finals in all 4 of her leagues.
Awesome.
10-team PPR league. She needs a flex. Kittle. She's got Kelsey. Kittle, Metcalf, Swift, Edmonds, Justin Jackson, Madison. A lot of moving parts here. If Connor's
definitely
out,
right. If Connor's out, then Edmonds enters the equation. Okay, so let's just say that everybody who's currently on the COVID list is out. They don't play. So no Dalvin Cook.
Well, that's not going to
Connor isn't even on the COVID list. Connor doesn't have COVID. Let's say he's out too.
You know what we should do?
Do you take Madison?
We
over
should do like a
Edmonds?
mailbag show on Friday where we answer these types of questions after we have a little bit more information.
I would probably go with Madison if all those guys are out. And
I may go Edmonds if it's full PPR.
if Connor and Cook and Eckler all play, then who do you go with? Kittle?
Edmonds is my number one running back if James Conner doesn't play.
Okay.
From
But if he
the
does
script, right.
play, Edmonds, Jackson, and Madison are not the starting running backs. Then you go down to Kittle, Metcalf, and DeAndre Swift.
Is Swift playing? If Swift is playing, he's the pick. If he's out, Kittle is the pick. DK Metcalf is last.
I would go Kittle over Swift.
And our Apple Podcast questions from Gambino. Start a running back, a wide receiver, and a flex in PPR. David Montgomery, Eli Mitchell, Sony Michel.
From those running backs, I would pencil in Montgomery.
And a wide receiver, Deontay Johnson or Deebo Samuel.
Deontay.
Probably Deontay.
Then a flex, Mitchell, Sony, or Deebo.
Sony.
Plan on Sony.
From Pat Fan, 1982.
Ooh, that's tough.
Dynasty,
Yeah, if Lance is the quarterback, it's probably the way to go.
Dynasty Grade the Trade gave Joe Mixon and Ronald Jones for Travis Etienne and the number 3 pick in next year's rookie draft. Mixon and Ronald Jones for Travis Etienne and the number 3 pick.
I don't think I like it.
Like, obviously, whatever Mixon and Jones are going to do this week doesn't matter to you.
Right.
I'd prefer Mixon to ETN, but it's not that far apart. And I greatly prefer the number 3 pick to Ronald Jones, even though Jones is a sneaky dynasty ad this offseason because he could end up with a starting job. I'd give it a C-.
Yeah, I don't. That number 3 pick's gonna be a pretty good one. So decent trade there. All right, that's it for today's show. Oh, Schrager did the Twitter poll. Hunter Henry, Gronk, or Uzama. Henry's 71%.
Yeah.
Gronk 23%. Uzama 5%.
Gronk got more votes than Uzama.
Uzama.
Yeah,
That's insane.
That's the Western Pennsylvania contingent weighing in.
Western Pennsylvania, very close to Dallas, from what I understand, and Houston. We will talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today. Thanks a lot, everybody.